Well, we're back. It's always big fun when we talk economic development. That's one of my favorite topics.
It is.
Yeah.
I like developers. So you develop economics?
I develop economics. That's it.
How'd you get that job?
That's a fair question. So, I'd say about 4 years ago, I originally started at the chamber just helping out, volunteering, and the opportunity arose. There was some grant opportunities with the city. There was a need for it, and Kelly, my boss, just kind of put me up on it, and I never stopped doing it. And just to this day, continuing on. Yeah, I got a C in economics in college. So
you did?
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's nice to know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Okay, we're off and running. I
There
haven't
you
even
go.
introduced you to the guy, and now we know he got a C in economics.
Well,
anyway,
stood for Conway. He knew what was
Devin
coming.
Parks joins us,
There it is.
Director of Economic Development for the Conway Area Chamber of Commerce. Good
Yes,
seeing
sir.
you.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Man, I go over to the chamber offices quite a bit, not as much as I did last year, prior to dealing with COVID-19. And I would walk by your office and I said, what's that cat in there do? What's he do? You get that asked from time to time?
yeah, 'cause
All-
you must
all
say
the
you
time.
didn't look busy.
No, he did look busy.
Yeah.
That's what threw me for a loop.
That is literally the only thing I have going for me is I am always busy. So when
yeah?
someone asks me that question, it's a different answer every single day. It really is. One day it might be working on a parking situation for a business. Another day it might be working with a developer looking for a certain niche to bring into Conway. It really does vary on a day-to-day basis. But for the most part, I would say advocacy is big on our end on behalf of the businesses. Between the city of Conway, whatever the case may be, and business recruitment. We want to keep the businesses we have here. We want them to thrive and we want them to grow, but we also want to attract new business as well. So that's really in a nutshell, a one-liner what my job is. Again, from a day-to-day, it really does vary. It's always different.
So you want to make sure they're successful.
That's exactly right. So the chamber motto is your success is our greatest accomplishment. So that's really the name of the game. We want business to thrive.
Well, when you think about economic development, you're on top of the trends. I'm sure you analyze what's the moving thing out there. If there's a way we can bring in, some hot trend, some hot new industry.
Absolutely, Ed. I mean, even now more so than ever, because the data, with COVID and everything, and what our economy has been experiencing, the data doesn't exist only to a certain level. So. Right now, the consumer polling opinions that we received in February are completely different than they are in March right now. I'd say in the past month, we've really seen a shift in public perception as far as people are optimistic. They're getting to a point where they can see our economy returning to normal within the next 6 to 12 months. I would say last month, it was around 56% of people thought that we'd have a complete recovery in 6 months. That's up to roughly 70%. Within the next 12 months, public perception saying about 90% of consumers out there think that we're going to be back to a form of normalcy within the next 12 months. So it's encouraging right now when, on the flip side, the past 6 to 8 months have really been kind of up in the air. Everyone's been a little nervous, how are we going to fare through all of this and what are the ramifications? How are we going to come out? So it's looking like we're seeing that light at the end of the tunnel.
It's been a strange year.
So strange.
Yeah, no doubt. But there have been challenges with Conway, not just with the pandemic. It seems like the last 5 years have just been full of nothing but fun. When you say normalcy, there hasn't been normalcy.
What is normalcy for Conway,
yeah,
South Carolina?
For Conway.
Yep. They call it 1,000-year flood for a reason, I thought.
Yeah.
So we're on, lucky number 2, hopefully no round 3 anytime soon. But yeah, you're exactly right. If you're a business owner in Conway, you've owned and operated a business in the past 5 years, and you are standing to this day, I don't know what you can't overcome.
Yeah.
Really, 2,000-year floods. We had the Main Street Bridge closed for 6 to 8 months, I believe, completely shutting down, not completely shutting down, but, blocking that entrance into downtown and gridlocking 501. So we definitely see the growth. We definitely see that there are obstacles associated with it. And, a Conway business owner is a veteran. There's no rookie about it. Yep.
Yeah. It's been crazy.
Yeah, it sure has.
Now, Conway itself expanded its boundaries, a while back. They really just grew exponentially. I mean, they just took off like a rocket. So the city limits of Conway are pretty expansive.
They sure are, and if you take a look at the future land use map, it's even more so.
Really?
Yes, sir. So the future land use covers where the city of Conway can put water and sewer, but really as far as when you see the city limits boundaries grow, it's organically. So I always say look at Carolina Forest 10 to 15 years ago, when it was literally a forest. Well, more like 20 years ago. But you see that growth, and you see that natural progression coming from the beach and moving inland, and we're next in line. So we know in the past 10 years, the city has grown 10,000 people proper. So we went from 17,000 population 10 years ago, and right now we're just over 27,000. That's a big chunk of growth. And, you can see that with whether it's residential development, commercial development, you see it throughout all of Conway, not necessarily just one area. I mean, the whole city is growing.
And even those numbers are going to be outdated when you look at census numbers. I mean, they have to. I look at the homes that have been built in the last year.
Yeah, it really is incredible. I think I can't see any trend that's going to change anything right now as far as the growth. And I mean, you talk about the obstacles that the city has had, and despite this, our population has grown 10,000 in the last 10 years. I mean, there's something to be said for that. There really is.
When I think Conway, a lot of times we get caught into that trap where we're really focused on the downtown, but you've got members of the Conway Chamber of Commerce that are not in Conway proper. I mean, all of the business of Horry County does ultimately end up here because it being the county seat.
Sure.
It has become that destination for a lot of folks that come to the beach.
Yeah, it really
They're
does.
going to spend a day here.
Yep. And that's, I like Hillary's little slogan from Downtown Alive when she says, this is the sunburn capital of Horry County. If you're burnt down in Myrtle Beach, come take a day off from the sun, check out downtown Conway and surrounding Conway area.
Yeah, used to that'd be a farmer's tan, but that's no longer exists around here. Most of the farmers are gone. They're housing developments.
Oh, goodness.
That's crazy. Yeah. But that's good. It's like a fat man having to loosen up that belt a little bit, keep growing. It's going real good, yeah. I remember back people just used to fly through here on 501, but they couldn't wait to get to Myrtle Beach. Now they like to stop in Conway. It's
Absolutely.
a cool, quaint town, and everybody likes it because that's where a lot of those folks are from, these kind of areas.
Exactly. I mean, to me, Conway is like that unique city within Horry County that is your kind of taste of home. You have that small town atmosphere amid every other city, which is hospitality oriented, not that we aren't, but not to the extent that they are. So to me, it's a little home away from home, yet 20 minutes right down the road from the beach,
Oh, yeah.
It's perfectly located, perfectly convenient.
And these boys from up north, man, they don't care to drive 30 miles to water. When you live in New York City, usually you live 100 miles out or whatever. It's no big deal. So down here, man, this is like living at the beach. I mean, living in Conway is living at the beach, basically.
Isn't that funny,
really?
the perception, though, if you live here, I got to go all the way to the beach. But I mean,
that's us. That's
for,
me.
for tourists, coming down, this is their final, oh my goodness, we're almost there,
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, maybe some of the silver lining. I remember when we were dealing with some of the flooding and the bridge was down to basically one lane. I got stuck in it a couple of times, and I'm thinking, okay, and so I had time to actually look around and see things. I think it might have been, in a roundabout way, an opportunity for folks to really get, because you do drive through it typically, and so they're like, oh wow, there is a town here. We're seeing a little bit too much of it right now. We're not moving. But I think that probably piqued some folks' curiosity a little bit. I was telling, some members of your chamber the other day that when I visit, the big spot on the map for tourism, I find the little areas like Conway to go visit, do day trips.
And you are not alone. I mean, downtown Conway, it's one of those niche locations, that people seek out and attract. The Main Street Bridge closing was definitely not ideal. The flooding on 501 definitely wasn't ideal, but there is a lot of development and growth, and there is a lot of the average daily traffic count in Conway on 501 especially is sky high. I think we have the second highest traffic count in all of Horry County right here on 501, 701, 378, second and only to the Carolina Forest 501 area.
Okay.
But what the flooding when they had to dam up 501 and when they closed down the Main Street Bridge for renovations, that was a very good glimpse into our future. That's what we can expect, on the regular. Because when you take a look at the traffic that was diverted to one or the other, we're talking about 10 to 15,000 cars a day. So that is going to be our average, daily count. So, we are, Horry County's really good, like little hidden secret, but that is changing. That's not going to be the case in the next 10 years or so. So we're in a really unique area as far as Conway's development in their timeline. There's a lot of opportunity out there. We just have to make the right choices now to make sure that our infrastructure and all that good stuff is adequate, to take care of not only our residents and keep their quality of life as high as humanly possible, but also for the tourists that drive through. Yeah.
One day I was there, and you were in there meeting with a gentleman. You guys were looking at maps. So you look at the big picture. I mean, infrastructure and roads, or the lack thereof, is something that you talk about quite a bit.
It certainly has been in the last couple of years, absolutely. And I'm no expert in that department, but at the same time, I'm learning a lot, and it makes sense. If you approach economic development from a common sense standpoint, it's amazing, how clear it can become. It really is just like a puzzle. You're just putting different pieces in the places that they need to be.
So what's the secret down there of why you're an economic developer for the Conway area chamber? There are other chambers of commerce that don't have economic developers. How did that all come about? Your job position, and was that just a dream someone had?
Yeah, actually, my boss, Kelly James, and the Vice President of Economic Development, Gary Lee, this was just before my time, but they were really the two that pushed, the need for an economic development entity within Conway. And when you think of a Chamber of Commerce, really all we are is a collective organization of the business community. So who better to advocate on the business's behalf or recruit on the business's behalf than a Chamber of Commerce? So from overall mentality, it does make sense. You're right, though. Not every chamber has an economic development director. Not every city has an economic development director. Sometimes they're government relations. There's different names. But yeah, you're absolutely right. There is not always a economic development aspect to each city, and I think there really does need to be, because it's not about just growing a city. It's about recruiting the right kind of businesses, finding out what the city needs, where are our residents leaving and spending their dollars, and what are they spending those dollars on, and how can we recruit that kind of business to make sure that the residents of Conway don't have to leave city limits in order to get these goods and supplies. So I definitely, of course, I see a need for my job.
Oh, sure, no,
absolutely,
I do see it. I really do see it. I wish that there was a way some other chambers of commerce could benefit. I know they would benefit from it. How can they afford it?
Yeah, and that's the kicker. You really have to have some support from your city itself. You have to have some backing, and that's exactly what the city of Conway has done. They saw a need for it. They've created a grant for that, and we're very grateful for the opportunity to get out there and recruit the top-notch businesses that
Wow.
our
So the city
residents
got
want.
involved. It was kind of a partnership between the chamber and the city?
Now, again, I wasn't quite here, but I've heard the stories. Yeah, and that's exactly right. So Kelly and Gary got a plan together, presented it to the city. I don't know the timeline or what the turnover was, but here we are today. So clearly, something made sense that Kelly and Gary said to the city, and vice versa, and they took a chance. And hopefully, they're proud of the work we've been doing, and we look forward to continuing that partnership.
Well, I grew up in a different part of the country, not really that dramatically different. I grew up outside of the Raleigh area, so it's a 2.5-hour, 3-hour drive to downtown Conway. But what I expect and what I wanted from a thriving city is different than people that have lived here there, and the same can be said for a little town. Having infrastructure. I grew up in a town that is smaller today than it was when I left, and despite that, we have 2 interstate highways and we have rail service.
Wow.
And those are you got an area if you've got 2 interstate highways and rail service going through your town, you think you would be booming. Sometimes it's the attitude of the community.
Well, it's also an escape route for people
It
to leave.
But that would defy logic.
Yeah. Industrial loves an escape route. They love several different leaving options.
Sure.
So you're exactly right. I mean, if you have 2 highways within a 5-mile radius and rail,
Craziest thing in the world.
you're making my job tough if I'm competing with you. But Horry County is again, a really niche kind of different county. When you look at the rest of South Carolina and even the majority of North Carolina, our county is different. We don't have that immediate access to an interstate as it stands right now. But at the same time, we haven't needed it because we have such a drive and such demand as far as hospitality and the whole pool of the beach. And man, you talk about silver linings. How about the Chanticleers, and what they did?
Sure. No,
I
man.
mean, on
Yeah,
a national level with that undefeated season. I can't tell you how many people I've reached out to from a development standpoint that really didn't know what Conway, South Carolina. I'm talking Minnesota, like way out there. And, Chanticleers, yeah, we saw you on TV, game day,
Sure.
Teal football
use a
field,
bike
all that
path
stuff.
to get here now.
Yeah, there you
it's,
go.
It's major. Yeah, it really is.
It really is, and it's changing the perception and the dynamics of how we're going to, look at our future growth because we are on the radar on a national scale right now. We
Yeah,
really
sure.
are.
Yeah. Myrtle Beach, I know. I live over there. I get to sleep over there. I live in Conway and Loris, but I do get to sleep there. They get all the attention, but there's some exciting things happening outside of that grandstand. Conway's ripping it up. You guys are doing well.
They sure are, yeah. And, the beauty of it is we don't have to compete. There's opportunity for everybody in Horry County.
I like the way you say that. You don't have to compete.
No.
We're all in that big picture. Devin, good seeing you, man.
Well, thank you so much for
Sure
having me.
thing.
I enjoyed it. It wasn't as
Absolutely.
painful as I anticipated.
we
Well,
were kidding
yeah.
you. We were kidding you there.
We create that scenario. We lie a lot until you get here, and then you find out
We
how
like
easy
to
it is.
intimidate.
Hey, come on back. We got more economic development of our own. We got to pay some bills, and we'll be back with more after